and thank you for joining us for our Woodwind masterclass tonight. I'm not able to be there in person, so I wanted to make a recorded video for you. So this week, I've been having students and band directors submit questions about what they'd like to talk about specifically today in the masterclass. So two of the topics that came up that we're going to be discussing are instrument care and intonation. So I'm going to be talking about those concepts specifically for the clarinet and saxophone. So the clarinet. So the most important care tip about the clarinet is swabbing the clarinet, making sure to swab it out each time you play your instrument because of the moisture that's in it. I have a wood clarinet, so that's really important for wood clarinets that you swab it. You should be swabbing plastic clarinets too. It's hygienic and it keeps your instrument just, staying nice and clean. Sounding good. So this is very important. So you want to swab the mouthpiece and the clarinet body separately. So this is because if you run the swab through the mouthpiece over time, you're going to be putting stress on it and it's going to degrade the mouthpiece. So how I do this is I just kind of take my clarinet swab, go at the top a little bit, clean it out. And then at the bottom, you can kind of get it in there rather than just running it through because that's actually bad for the mouthpiece over time. Then, I have some knots in my swab. I gotta untangle those so that they don't get stuck in my clarinet. So you want to make sure that you don't have any knots on your clarinet swab. So then I just run the swab through the bell. Maybe this is pretty basic for you, but it's really important that you clean out your mouthpiece and clarinet separately. So now we're going to put it back together because we're going to play later. Okay, also reeds. So you definitely want to have the reed in some sort of case. The plastic sleeve the reed came in is fine if that's what you have. I have a reed case like this. I was just playing saxophones. These are a bunch of saxophone reeds in here. This holds 8. You can put a little humidity pack in there, but the important thing is getting the reed on a flat surface so it doesn't warp. So you might want to think about getting a case for your reeds at some point. Then it's nice, all your reeds are right there. So, great. So what other care tips do I have for clarinet? So you can use key oil sometimes. I don't have a bottle right now. It's a tiny little bottle of key oil, and you can put it in between the joints a little bit of your clarinet, just a little bit if things are stiff or not moving as loosely as they normally are. The other thing you can do is bore oil on the inside of your clarinet, maybe like twice a year or something. It's really not a huge deal to be using bore oil all the time, but that just helps wood clarinets stay nice. Yeah, I'll check how frequently you should be using that. But both of these things are pretty inexpensive, like under $10. So those are some basic clarinet tips. You do not want to give your clarinet a bath. Very bad for the wood and the keys and the pads. So definitely do not leave your clarinet soaking in any sort of water. The other thing I'll talk about, and this will apply to both clarinet and saxophone. So the mouthpiece gets kind of gross over time, right? You play it, it gets kind of this buildup on here. What do you do about that? You don't really want to scrape at it. What you can do is you can take some white vinegar. You can apply it. You can let it soak a little bit in the vinegar. You can put like vinegar and water together. And you can let it soak in there for a little bit. You can also let it soak in lemon juice just for a little bit. I wouldn't leave it overnight. But those are some things that you can do to get that crusty stuff off your mouthpiece and have it looking nice. Also remember to be replacing your mouthpiece patch. Of course, now I just broke my reed. After all the talk about reed care. It's kind of an old one anyway. So yeah, having a mouthpiece patch is, you can change those, and those are pretty inexpensive as well. I wonder if this still makes a sound. Some of my best reeds have been through a lot. Yeah, that sounds fine. So I'll be playing in a second for intonation, but let's go to the saxophone. So very similar care tips to the clarinet. Reeds are in a case. You can swab. Okay, so you can't swab the neck, right? Because the neck is like pretty tiny. But you can get a swab specifically for saxophone, and you can just bring it through the body of the saxophone, turn your saxophone around. And what you can also do is you can kind of do the half swab method I use for the clarinet mouthpiece. You can do a little bit of the neck. It gets kind of gross, so you might want to use like a different swab for that. And then also the swab technique of the saxophone mouthpiece that I showed for the clarinet mouthpiece. So yeah, and also I have a mouthpiece cap. This is plastic. I have a leather one on my clarinet. It doesn't really matter. Some sort of thing to protect the mouthpiece and the reed. So if you're walking around, you don't do what I just did and hit the reed. If I had my mouthpiece cap on, I wouldn't have done that. So I like to just put my mouthpiece cap on when I'm not playing. Any other saxophone care tips? You can use a little bit of key oil on your saxophone. You don't want to give your saxophone a bath either. Like the clarinet, it doesn't really like a lot of water. It can be damaging for the pads. So that's your basic instrument care tips. Make sure to be cleaning it daily. Be careful with it. Keep it in a case when you're not playing with it. Don't drop it, obviously. And if you notice a problem, take it into, your local repairman so they can look at it before it gets worse on your instrument. Okay, I talked about the key oil. Other care tips. I think I mostly covered everything. So let's talk about intonation a little bit. If you have a question at any time, you can email us at the Virtual Woodwinds Gmail account. So let's talk about intonation on the clarinet and the saxophone.